Okay, good evening, everyone. My name is Emily Brophy, and I am the chair of the Planning Board Subcommittee on the Capital Improvement Budget and Program. I would like to acknowledge the committee members that are present with us this evening. When you hear your name, please say aye. Mr. Array,
Aye.
Ms. German,
Aye.
Mr. Hafer,
Aye.
Mr. Heckman,
Aye.
Mr. Heinel, Mr. Hinton, Mr. Halupka,
Aye.
Mr. Johnson,
Aye.
Ms. Meneses. I know I saw her name pop up.
I was on mute, sorry.
Oh, that's okay. That's okay.
I'm here.
Okay, Ms. Pinero and Mr. Schulman. Perfect. Thank you, everyone. Tonight we are meeting in a work. I'm sorry.
Madam Chair, this is Steve. Before we proceed, if I may, on Monday night, the County Council appointed or approved the appointments and confirmed the appointments of 3 new members of the Planning Board. 2 of them are in attendance as sort of audience tonight. Although they've been confirmed, we have to get them through the system that all of you also experience. But we have Ed Brady and Mark Duvall with us to listen in and learn not only about the presentations, but also to see all of your smiling and happy faces on screen. So we welcome Ed and Mark with us tonight.
Thank you so much, Director Lafferty. Welcome. We're happy to have you 2 with us. Tonight, we are meeting in a work session to hear from the Department of Environmental Protection and Sustainability, the Office of Information Technology, and the Department of Planning. After each presentation, members of the committee will have the opportunity to ask questions of the presenter. Before we begin the presentations, I want to note that I know there are members of the community in attendance of tonight's meeting. This meeting has not been designed to accept comments from citizens. The Planning Board held a citizen input meeting on October 17th, 2024, which was the opportunity for the board to hear from citizens on their issues concerning the capital improvement program. Now I would like to invite Mr. Horacio Tablada from the Department of Environmental Protection and Sustainability to begin his presentation. How are you, Mr. Tablada? Welcome.
Thank you, everyone, for having us today presenting before the Planning Board. And to adjust my speakerphone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Now is much better. Yes, thank you.
Hold on. How about now? I'm trying to have it come through my earbuds, so that's why.
Oh, we can hear you. Yep.
Okay. Anyway, I'll go with this. And so you have received again the Horacio Tablado, HT. I go by in the department, and with me on the screen also is Robert Ryan. He's the manager that we have that regulates, coordinates all the capital projects in the department. He's been with the department many years, and he's a valuable employee that we have. On the first of all, we have a PowerPoint to present. It's only 20 slides, so it's not that long. I would like to go through it. I don't know if you will share it, Courtney, or whether I can share it. Either way, it's fine with me.
I can share it for you. That's not a problem. Give me 1 second.
It was posted on the agenda in the calendar in the schedule. All right, everybody can see that. So
Yes.
let's go to the next slide. That's the beautiful pictures there. Anyway, our organization is 93 people strong, and we have the same number of staff for a pretty few years. And basically, you can take that org chart and divide it in 2 parts. To the left or the middle is our review program. They're the program that review a lot of the in resources, the stormwater and groundwater and septics and things like that. On the right-hand side is the programs that are more impactful because they're the ones that deal with watershed protection. And last but not least is our sustainability unit office that is on the upper left corner, the org chart, which is mighty strong with 3 people. So right now it's only 2. Actually, one is about to be hired pretty quickly. So that's the 93 that we have on board, and most of the staff that we have. And as you know, I started with the department July 31, 2023. So it's coming a little over a year now. And one of the things that I recognized as soon as I came to this department is that I have a very talented people, a lot of them very mature people who have been with Baltimore County for many years, people who are very professional, very knowledgeable of the county waterways and systems in the county. So let's go to the next slide. So our capital drivers, capital program drivers are basically 4, or you can even think of only like a 1 or 2 units. The MS4 permit is the MDE permit, the federal permit, what's known as MPDES permit, that we get issued every 5 years. Our permit is was issued in November 2021. It will be renewed in 2026. So we're kind of like 3/4 of the way there. And this is for major municipalities, separate storm sewer systems. And that's what sets the criteria for example, for impervious surface restoration. We have a mandate to restore 3,167 acres of impervious surfaces, and we are about 67% of the goal, of the total goal. So we are really ahead of where we should be right now in time-wise. So we're doing pretty good progress there. And the whole purpose of this is to achieve the Chesapeake Bay TMDL as part of the, not just Baltimore County, but all the counties in Maryland and everyone working together to meet the TMDL. Now, of course, when you think of the Bay TMDL, that's the main spine of everything. However, everything fits into the Bay, that's why the importance of local TMDLs, who set up limits and criteria for. So if we meet the local TMDL, then we ensure that the Bay TMDL will be met. So next slide. The one thing to note here is that we recently, last December, we submitted to MDE because this was a requirement for us to submit a salt management plan. Why is it important? I mean, obviously during this time with the weather that we have and the temperatures that we have in, salt is very important. However, if you over apply salt, it causes environmental damage to the streams. It will increase the chlorides in the stream, affecting even drinking water wells and reservoirs. So we have developed this salt management plan. It was submitted to MDE in December of this past year and last month, and we are waiting for their final comments. But all along the way, we basically are already implementing this plan across the county enterprise. We are working very closely with our property management building, and to ensure that we apply the sufficient salt to prevent any harm to our bodies. Of course, you know, me being an elderly person, I don't want to trip and fall in ice. So on the other hand, we don't want it to throw salt just to throw salt. So this is a good. We're doing a lot of outreach in via our social media and trying to coordinate with other groups in the county. Next slide. One of the other components that is very critical is the PCB, that's polychlorinated biphenyls. The PCB is a very persistent toxic, and it stays in the sediment and accumulates in fish, and also in the water sediments and water column. So we, as a result of the settlement with Monsanto, the county has received beneficiary of $9.5 million from this lawsuit that was settled last year. and an award that we got. And this is helping us pay for our detailed investigation of PCBs across the county. And MDE has given us guidance what we need to look at it. And the whole purpose is to determine where the hot spots are. So we can remove hot spots. We can, we can enforce the removal of hot spots from the responsible parties. For example, Lockheed Martin in Middle River area, they had done tremendous work removing PCB from their different waterways there. And as we remove all this, then our water system will restore, and the fish will get better over time. So right now we're doing a lot of sampling. We did the beginning of phase 1, doing sampling and ensuring that we can meet our goals and for testing to ensure that to know where we are supposed to be focusing our attention. This past Monday, I choose the county council approved an expansion, additional money to our testing contractors. So we have 2 laboratories online that do a lot of testing, and they just increased the amount that I can spend based on the additional revenue that we have there. Next slide. Our basic capital improvement projects are in 4 areas, and there's a 5th one with sustainability, but that comes in a separate slide by itself. Stream restorations, and you're very familiar with this. Shoreline stabilization and enhancement that are along the county border lines on the bay, and then improvement to our stormwater facilities and best management practices, and then reforestation, which is more trees planted. So we're going to go through all those 4 areas in the next few slides. Next one. Everything that we do in the enterprise is we do it through the lens of resiliency and sustainability. So I'm not going to go through point by point this slide here, but everything that we're doing with stream restoration, stream shoreline, stormwater BMPs, or reforestation has a link to sustainability and resiliency. Next slide. So here's a stream restoration. This is just a picture before and after. Everybody likes to look the before and after pictures. And here's a stream mine bank run in Towson. And you can see the improvement before and after. Next slide over. Next. So in 1994, through the end of the fiscal year 25, we had done 106 projects were completed, costing the county and the taxpayers $177 million. Now for FY26, which is the coming fiscal year that we're looking at, we're requesting $3.9 million to do 3 projects. 2 are design and 1 is to complete a construction. We're proposing in the future a total of $14 million for 10 additional projects from 27 through fiscal year 29. This is our bread and butter capital projects at Department of Environment Protection and Sustainability. And Robert Ryan is the key manager. He's the one online because over years we have done tremendous success. People around the whole state look to Baltimore County as a leader on stream restoration projects. I've seen some myself, and it's amazing when you see from where it was to where it is and how the water quality improves. Next slide. The shoreline stabilization, this is on the more near the water in the east part of the county. And this is just 2 pictures there, the before and after of the project that we just completed. Next one. So from 1991 through 25, fiscal year 25, we have 42 projects completed, costing about $22 million. For the FY26 budget, which is the one we're presenting, we're requesting $4 million for construction of 2 projects. And for the remainder fiscal years, we're proposing $11 million in the CIP for 5 new projects and construction and design of 2 new ones. And as you can see in the map there, you may not see it very clearly, but they're the areas where the projects have occurred. Next slide. The stormwater improvement, this BMP, this is very key. I had gone around the county in the last year, especially in the summertime, to look at these stormwater ponds. We're investing in our ponds to make them more efficient, to remove nutrients, not just to slow down the stormwater flow, but to improve the nutrient removal. Next slide. So in these ones, we have from fiscal year 13 through the current, we've done 183 projects completed at a cost of $15 million. For FY26, we're requesting 3.6 million, which includes funding for approximately 11 water quality projects, 17 BMP repairs, and these three annual maintenance is where there's about 1,500 facilities in Baltimore County where the county, my department is responsible for inspecting and maintaining. But there are about 5,000 stormwater systems in the county where we're responsible for inspecting, but the homeowners are responsible, the homeowner associations are responsible for maintaining it. So, but these were the earlier ones that came across. And so we have, so we inspect them and we maintain this one on the 3-year rotation. So we're proposing 16 projects, about $3.6 million for FY26 through 28. And again, it's repairing, maintaining, inspecting of these stormwater facilities. Next one. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is an innovation. One of the things that we're trying to see, how can we make our ponds in Baltimore County even better? So we came up with this floating treatment wetlands idea last year, where we purchased at $144,000 this floating treatment wetlands in the White Marsh area. And this is a pilot study where we have a control and we have one implementing a pond system there. As you can see there, those are floating mats that you put in the ponds, and then the vegetation grows and they absorb nutrients, hold the temperature. It does many things to the environment. So we have a dissolved oxygen meters and temperature sensors in these facilities, and we are planning to install a second pilot in the spring of 2025. Now, ideally, we can do something like this across all the 1,500 pond systems that we maintain. But however, you need depth of water and you need enough surface area. So we have maybe about 8 facilities like this across this county, and we're trying to do the testing and ensure that this is the money's worth the investment, in other words. So because we don't want to be putting money in if it's not going to work. So far we're encouraged by the data we're getting, but we're going to see some more next year. Next one. Now the Office of Sustainability, Greg Strela is a great addition to our system, to our department, and he's been working a lot across the whole enterprise of Baltimore County. First, doing assessment, reviewing where we are and where do we need to go. So in capital funds, this FY24 and 25, we managed $2.3 million, and most of the money has gone for analyzing the building energy performance. That's very important because we wanted to get a good benchmark of all our buildings in Baltimore County that we own, not the private business, but the ones that county-owned business. And we also spending money, $250,000 on EV charging study and software. We don't want to be placing. We want to be placing EV chargers in areas where it matters and not just all over the place. So we're doing this study that will provide information to us that we can then do the right place them in the right places. Next slide. So, but the enterprise, the sustainability of the works across the whole Baltimore County government. So we interact a lot. Greg interacts a lot with property management, with public works and transportation, Office of Budget and Financing, and we are interacting across. He's the kind of spearheading the ideas, but then the other departments implement the projects. And we have solar panels in. This is the Randallstown Rec Center on Liberty Road. We're doing 2 large projects in closed landfills in Parkton and Harewood, and we also doing some other, purchasing electric vehicles for the people that can use them, like the parking enforcement, that is. And so he kind of coordinates all this, but you will see these capital improvements in those departments' budgets, not my budget. Next one. So reforestation is very critical. As you know, the trees are very important. They're the lungs of our what we breathe, and it cools the temperature of the planet, and it helps with everything we're doing. So, for fact, today I was listening to Secretary of DNR make a presentation before the Environmental Protection Committee on trees across for the whole state, and it brought the issue about trees around the reservoirs and other areas that we involve. But there are two projects that are very critical to us. First of all, we have rural reforestation, which is as you know, Baltimore County has the rural part in the north part of the county, where we're focusing a lot, and we maintaining our forests there. But we're also focusing on urban. And the urban, you can split it in two parts. The Operation RE3, which is our equity program, which is we're restoring trees where the areas in Baltimore County have been with no trees. And the tree replacement is where trees are being cut for expansion of roads and other projects. So those two projects are urban areas. And next year we're working on recombining the two projects into just calling them urban reforestation, because our criteria is always to plant trees where trees used to be, but then no longer there, so we can bring value and cool the neighborhoods as you can see in the picture in the bottom left there there's just no trees. And that's something that we bring equity and planting trees these trees are native to the area, and so there's more resilient, and we plant them in a way that with permission of the homeowner. Sometimes people don't want the tree for whatever reason, then we just move them. So it's always in collaboration with the communities. We don't do this in a vacuum. Next slide. So talk about projects here. We had done 295 projects in 2013, about 480 acres, 68,500 trees where have been planted at a cost of $6.4 million. For FY26, we're requesting $725,000, include funding for 30 acres of reforestation. We're proposing 50 acres per year. That's our goal, 50 acres per year of reforestation projects, which cost around 1.1 to 1.5 million per year for the out years, for 27 through 30. Next slide. And we're coming to the end. And from 2020, this is the capital, the tree maintenance part of the operation. Because you have to maintain the trees, not just plant new ones. We're doing 59 projects at a cost of 1.3 million. And for FY26, we're requesting $274,000 for approximately 14 projects in the county. And for future years, some of this capital has shifted to operating budget. So we're going not see as much investment in the capital side, but the operating side, you'll see the same projects there. Next one. So this is the slide I was talking about. The trees are planting in urban communities have increased tremendously in 2021 and 2022, and a lot of credit goes to the former previous county executive Johnny Chesky, now congressman, who some of this Operation RE3 was really his idea. He came to my staff that before I got there, saying, "Hey, we need to plant trees where trees are being used to be, but no longer there." So those programs started with him, and from 21 to 25, we've done 63 projects, about 7,000 trees, and this is where the $625,000 are being shifted to the operating budget to do this, continuing these projects. Next slide. I think that's the end. So with that, I really respect the approval and support and of the planning board. This is money well invested in for environmental protection and sustainability in Baltimore County. We try to listen to the community interest when it comes to tree planting. And we work with them a lot on the stream restoration projects. We're trying to get the best bang for the buck so we can get the most credit and meet compliance with our TMDL permits, MS4 permits with MDE. That's kind of like the main driver in my head. I got to comply with the permit because that will hinder a lot of things. So with that, I'll stop there and you can stop sharing or leave it there in case someone wants to refer to a slide and open to any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. Tablata. Do we have any questions from the board for Mr. Tablata? Go ahead and raise your emoji hand, excuse me, so I can see them. Ms. Muneses?
Yes, I have a couple questions. One, the money, the 9 million from Monsanto settlement, was that already spent or has it been divided over a certain number of years?
It hasn't been spent. It's been it has come in two parts to the county. It's set up on a special account, so doesn't get used for other things. And that's why we're just starting to spend money on monitoring, and that's where the new contract with the labs. And then once we do that, we're going to, that's primarily for monitoring and restoration to some degree. But remember that for example, we may identify locations in Baltimore County where the PCB is coming from a transformer yard from, let's say, BGE, and this is hypothetical. Obviously PCB was a coolant oil that was used a lot in industrial operations so you're finding a lot in electrical areas like BGE yards. Obviously, where Trepo Atlantic is, they used to use a lot of PCB because of the heavy manufacturing when Bethlehem Steel was there. So all those areas, then we identify where those focuses are. And when there is a responsible party, the responsible party does the work for cleanup and restoration. I mentioned Lockheed Martin in Middle River. It's a viable company. They have done a lot of money. They're spending a lot of money cleaning up the sediments in their immediate area. But so we need to find out where all these hotspots are through the county by doing this testing so we can go back and work with MDE so they can get the right enforcement to make people comply if they're responsible for it.
Okay, my next question is, has the Eastern Sanitary Landfill been tested for PCBs or the surrounding waterways?
The sanitary landfill, they all are rigorously tested under Public Works and Transportation Department because we don't. My department does not oversee the landfills, but I know from the state perspective, because I used to be with MDE many years, all the priority pollutants are tested for all the monitoring wells in the area of the landfill and within the landfill and outside the landfill. So that's not a question I can answer you with certainty because my department does not do the landfill.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Halupka?
Just a couple of questions. When it comes to like tree restoration, if like there are, when storms come through and trees fall down in county parks or along the county roads, is that your department that would then replace those trees, or how does that work?
If this, we work with rec and parks very closely with Public Works. If the tree falls down in a park, we have a restoration plan with the parks that whether they plant them there or they plant them in a different area, we're trying to replace the trees that were damaged. But for example, think of the large parks in Baltimore County when and by the way, we don't remove the trees necessarily because the trees create a biological activity for bugs and worms and things like that. So unless it's causing a flooding issue, we let the trees stay there and creates a habitat for critters and things like that. So, but we work very closely with the school systems and the rec and parks to see where do we need to plant trees. So we are looking for places. I tell actually the citizens, everyone in this board here, that if you know an area, you know what, we can use some trees planted over here. We're looking for places like that. We have a whole foresters team in the Alms House in Caucasville that they would love to know areas where we can go and plant trees. So we're always looking for places to plant trees.
Yeah, and I was thinking more like, in more urban settings where we have urban parks that are not forests, but they're
Well, in those
more
ones, we will. I cannot tell you to the certainty to answer that question, but I know we work closely with rec and parks, and if they were to come and replace the tree, we come and replace them.
Then my second question, you mentioned that a lot of the storm water ponds are the responsibility of the HOAs. Are you seeing that, for the most part, the HOAs are living up to their responsibilities, or is that causing problems that are flowing down to the county?
Yeah, they're leaving to the responsibilities because we do the inspection. We issue a letter of after the inspection saying here's what we found, a report, and here's some certain things you need to correct, and you need to have this much. You have this much time to make corrections, and then we go back and re-inspect to be sure the corrections are done. For the most part, they fall in compliance with them. Occasionally, we have to send a second letter or a third letter. At the end of the day, if it was to be a real damage, the county could do this hypothetically. It has not happened under my jurisdiction or under my oversight, that the county can do the work ourselves and then add it as part of the tax bill to all the homeowners in that thing. So far we have not seen that. We just work with them, and they can work with us, and we say, hey, this is how you do it. And they can give us 6 months or 3 months to do it. So we work with them as long as there's not an urgent emergency type of repair.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Schulman?
Can you talk a little bit about the $1 million that's being spent on analyzing the county building energy performance and some of the metrics that you're looking at?
Right now, we have this contract, and they're reviewing all the different energy usage in the county. So they're trying to develop a benchmark and to see what the usage, and we have to meet to then say, okay, here are the areas where we can make changes, like light bulbs and switches or timers, so they will provide this much energy savings. So we're in the early stages of the contract. If you drop me an email, I can have Greg or Seth from my unit to specifically tell you where are we on that contract.
Who's the contract with?
I don't know on top of my head, to be honest. I don't want to misspeak. So, but if you send me an email, I'll have Greg Strela, the Chief Sustainability Officer, provide the information. But their contract that went through the council, so I just don't know it from memory.
Okay.
Thank you. Are there any other questions from the board? I'm looking for hands. I don't see any more. Okay. Well, thank you so much, Mr. Tablada. We appreciate your time.
Thank you very much for having me, and have a great evening.
Thank you. Have a great evening. Okay, next, I would like to invite Mr. Chris Martin from the Office of Information Technology to begin his presentation.
Hi, good evening. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes, good evening.
Perfect. Let me know when you can see my screen.
Yep, we can see it.
Okay. All right. So just starting out that OIT is a centralized IT department for the for the county government, we support all the departments that fall underneath the government umbrella. And so our capital budget, which obviously I'm going to present here tonight, really represents that support across all those departments, all their needs, everything from police and fire, our essential services, to the Office of Budget and Finance and Human Resources. So, as the operating budget works, we put in our request, we apply it to these new initiatives, and eventually the support and operation of those rolls under to our operating budget years later. I do want to thank the board for giving me this opportunity to present, and I want to thank just a few members of the OIT leadership who joined me. So Dana Walker, who's in charge of our portfolio management, Kelly Thomas, who's our chief of business operations, Momin Abdukir, who is our deputy director, Tom DeLuca is our chief technology officer, and Christina Lewis, who is our chief of human centered design. And so these are the folks day to day that are really helping us push these projects forward and then supporting these departments from an operational standpoint. And so here's a little bit about our operations. Currently, we have about 12,000 endpoint devices that we're supporting for county employees. We operate at about 50,000 calls and tickets each year, between 40 and 50,000. We have about 55 active projects in our portfolio at any given point. And then we have a number of contracts that will eventually turn into most of these projects that we see here today. So our teams are broken down into a few functional areas, but we really do support IT from beginning to end, whether that is, like I said, endpoint, server, infrastructure. The 311 call center is underneath of us. We handle cybersecurity, GIS, and all these different areas that are listed here under the leadership of those chiefs that are with me today. So, talking about a little bit about how we have spent our capital money from FY25 and previous years, and what we've executed this year using that money. So asset management, the early phases of that, we just completed phase 2. I'll be talking about the next phase as part of FY26, and these are the inventory systems that DPW&T uses to track all their equipment and keep it up to date, and everything from like financially to inventory. We are putting some resources into the police helicopters to deploy the computer-aided dispatch system that we implemented last year into those to provide them more resources as they're flying around the county. We are always going to be continuing our investment in cybersecurity. It's no secret that foreign entities and private individuals are always going after government, healthcare, education. The future of wars will be fought in the cybersecurity space. So obviously that is going to be a continual development throughout the years. The Beacon program, that is our fiber program that we expand network services to throughout the entire county. Broadband expansion. Broadband expansion is our initiative to utilize grants and a little bit of capital to provide high-speed internet to underserved and unserved areas of the county, to those folks that have no other options for getting broadband. We have some digital equity efforts going on, and I have a whole slide on that, so I'll talk about that in a little bit. And these broadband expansions, digital equity, the next one, esports, these are all initiatives that really support our constituents, and our constituents have a hands-on impact too. In the below picture here, we're working with Rec and Parks to deploy esports, which provides a couple different methods of engagement for students and for kids and even adults in the recreation environment. My Senior Center is a piece of software that the Department of Aging deployed this year, and that provides a way for constituents to schedule events and utilizes those spaces that we're using other capital funds in other departments to build out those facilities. And then one of our major projects was a website migration. And one of the things I'll talk about a little bit later on is part of our strategy of reducing our technical debt. And so the website migration was a part of that initiative. The project portfolio request process. So we have a team called CRMs, or customer relationship managers. They engage with our departments. They talk strategy with them. They figure out what their multi-year plan is and how that involves OIT. Those departments get their requests into us, and it comes into like an intake. It gets vetted, and then OIT does their review of it. I'm sorry, went too far. And so after it gets vetted and pulled in, we look for solutions. We determine, do we have something available already? Do we need to procure something? Do we need to implement something? Right. And then that goes into the funding request for capital. It gets presented to everybody here as part of the capital improvement plan. And then funding's approved, right? And after funding, then we move into the product life cycle situation where we implement, develop, deploy, and support. And that cycle repeats over and over. I mentioned earlier the Beacon program and a couple of our digital equity programs. So what you're seeing in this image, and this is available publicly on My Neighborhood in the GIS environment, are all the initiatives to provide broadband to parts of the county that are underserved. And so you see a bunch of different color dots. The blue dots indicate an FY21 grant that was already completed. The purple and red are currently in progress. Those are FY22 and 23 grants. Those are houses where Comcast and other entities are literally putting shovels in the ground to deploy high-speed internet to. And then the green ones are a few of the ones that are left over, called the Long Driveways grant. And those are houses that particularly have long driveways, or they're hard to reach areas that are outside the norm of the rest of this group. In addition, we are working to expand our Beacon program. This is the fiber network that we deploy to county buildings. We deploy to fire stations. There's a whole list of our customers that benefit from this program. And so, as you can see this year, we're putting a big focus on the volunteer fire stations to provide reliable internet to them. And then we have a couple of grants that are going on right now. The IGGA broadband grant will help with a last few remaining sites that are in the broadband program, as well as some digital equity projects that are going on. These digital equity programs really do support constituents, some of which are in need. So last year, in partnership with the state, we deployed almost 14,000 Chromebooks, utilizing the public libraries, Department of Economic and Workforce Development, and a few other entities within the county. And so we've actually are now receiving a couple of awards for that work that's been done. And it's not just with OIT. That really is in partnership with the departments that we support and work with us to provide those services. So in flight, what projects are happening now? The top one, which I know I'm probably going to get a couple questions about, is the LARA system. I will touch on that in a little bit. We are facing a replacement system for the existing one now. We are working very closely with the departments that utilize that system to develop a scope of work, gather requirements, so we can improve that existing system. I'll talk, like I said, I'll talk about technical debt in a little bit. A lot of these you're seeing what I consider technical debt, or as aging systems that we're putting a heavy focus on replacing. So we are building out a centralized customer relationship management system for the county, so multiple departments can track their interaction with local businesses, constituents, and they can really help get some metrics around the work that we're doing. We'll be implementing a centralized learning management system through an existing product that we use called Workday. We will be focusing on a new procurement system with budget and finance that will help streamline the RFP process and the vendors that we utilize. There's a number of public safety initiatives that always take place. Some of these are because of things like the Criminal Justice Information System has new regulations that we have to meet. This could be anything from certain products and equipment to new solutions and tools that help officers on the ground, or firefighters fight fires, right? They might be looking at things like drones and other technology like that, or like AI tools or camera systems. And so there's a number of projects under the public safety umbrella. Capital and project management. This is a tool that will help Department of Public Works track the construction projects that they have going on right now. We're going to be implementing a new law case management system, so the Office of Law can track their cases. We'll be upgrading My Neighborhood, which is that public GIS system that you're seeing in the bottom right picture. And then we'll be looking at a replacement for the jail management system. So, a little bit about our planning and how we got to where we are right now with all these projects. So a couple of our strategic visions here are the initial development, right? And so one of the things that we're looking at is centralizing our applications into core or pillar applications that serve a majority of the offices and departments. My Neighborhood is a great example, right? We have one GIS program that everybody utilizes. Workday is another example. Workday handles our human resource solution and pay, and it also handles our budget. So it's supporting the Office of Budget and Finance. It's supporting human resources. It's going to handle our LMS system, right? And so we're building an efficiency so that we don't have as wide of a net for capturing all these applications out there. It makes it more difficult to support, and it's resource intensive, right? So by centralizing a lot of these services, we are putting efficiency in our resources supporting the departments. We're going to expand the use of low-code development solutions, right? And so there's kind of two ways to handle applications in an IT department. You can either go out and buy off-the-shelf software and implement it. That's a lot of what we do. That's most of what we do. Or you can develop the programs in-house and fully customize it, which works well, but it's very resource intensive. And so one of the things we're going to put a heavy focus on this year is a middle of the ground solution, where we source solutions that allow you to configure and develop for customized application with minimized need for actual hard coding and programming. And then we're going to apply a human-centered design approach to our engagements to prioritize business needs and processes. An example of that is the LAR system, right? As we move into a new solution, it's not just about taking technology and putting it in hands, right? That's half of it. But the other half is really stopping and understanding the needs of the customers, not just our internal users, but the boots on the ground, the inspectors, the businesses that are going to be submitting their applications to this, right? And so by approaching them first and gathering their needs and seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, right? And focusing on the human-centered side of that will lead us to a successful technology implementation. So then we have our operations, right? And all this kind of follows that product life cycle that I talked a little bit earlier. So one of the things by putting these pillar applications in is we will be streamlining these existing processes, which will help with efficiency, right? Instead of having 100 developers out there trying to develop 1,000 systems, we can keep a core group of team members that support systems that really serve multiple departments at the same time. We are looking at our cybersecurity. We're always looking at that, right? And so that means doing audits, and audits is not the right word, but doing reviews, bringing in third-party companies to tell us what's working, what's not working, how the industry is changing, what's on the forefront, right? And then looking at our systems to make sure they're secure and meet those best practices. And then I mentioned focus on product lifecycle. So it's not just about implementing a piece of software and walking away from it. It's really continuing the development of that software and keep it growing through its entire lifespan here at the county. And so Workday's, again, another example that I keep going back to that, but it was initially used to manage human resources. It was then added on to support the financial side of the house, and then we'll keep expanding that so we can use that to help employees submit certain requests and documents. We can put learning management in there, and so we need to apply that approach to every one of these pillar applications. And then to grow, we really need to reduce our technical debt. And so this has been happening now for a couple years. I am lucky to be in a position where I'm seeing it all kind of come to a head. Last year, we removed our mainframe, right? The mainframe is an outdated solution that was costing the county money, right? By getting rid of that, we reduced old systems, and we don't need to now spend significant funds in supporting those outdated systems. We replaced our computer-aided dispatch system, which was a legacy application, right? That's crucial to the public safety of our constituents. Everything from calling 911 to dispatching services and then tracking that effort all the way through from start to finish. And then we're going to embrace artificial intelligence, right? Artificial intelligence doesn't replace jobs, but it brings efficiency to our IT solutions and even puts more tools into the hands of our end users, right? A lot of people think of AI as things like natural language models, being able to just talk to folks in other languages, which is important. That's part of it. That's going to be part of the implementation. But it's also things like pulling reports. I may need less database administrators to run query searches when the end user can now use AI to help write those reports that they need. And then we get to our requests for this year, right? And this is to really show where that money is going. We talked about cybersecurity, both in general, but we also want to build additional resiliency in our storage, right? While we have multiple storage units in place right now, we want to be able to react quick and fast in the event of an incident. And so some of this money will help go to that for our response planning. We traditionally have put a lot of funds and resources into preventing cybersecurity. And so now we're shifting that focus to how do we react to cybersecurity incidents. So with that might come some training on how to develop playbooks and keeping our DR books up to date. eGov is a program that we utilize to connect our county constituents to systems specifically, right? So this is where we may put a focus into AI to reach parts of the county that may struggle now to contact, and that could be through language, that could be through resources on the website. There's a number of initiatives that are going to take place there to help with that efficiency, support, and accessibility. We will continue the Beacon Fiber program. We are getting towards the peak of the fiber program where right now we are getting to the very far ends of our network. And then after we hit these last couple places, we'll start turning this over into a maintenance program. So all the fiber that we put in 10 years ago, it's going to be time to start refreshing that soon. So that'll eventually become the next focus. We'll continue our efforts in equity access, Connect Maryland. This is the BEAD grants that we're going after. These are the programs between this, the NTIA grant. These are the solutions that are really touching our constituents and getting them technology, resources, training that they need to be successful. Human capital management and financial program. This is where I talked about almost a phase 3 development to that. There's a number of health initiatives to help the health department with things like understanding data and going through a number of their technology projects. I discussed public safety projects already. This is where we kind of see the cool stuff like things like drones, and we even see AI tools to help us process live events that are going on. The stuff you see in the movies with the TV screens and everything. That's where a lot of that is really putting a focus in to help streamline some of their processes and help them put the bad guys away, to help get health services to people in the field. Digital records conversion. Really, the county has a lot of paper. There's a number of file cabinets around, right? And so this is part of that, right? This is modernizing and digitizing, again, like not just reducing technical debt, but just old systems in general, right? Getting rid of that paper, putting it into digital storage, and then implementing this with our existing programs. So it's not just an online file storage, but it'll go to areas where records may need to pass back and forth between systems. The LoRa system, we are underway for replacement of the system. We will be utilizing a new vendor going forward. It's going to take some significant work to get this where we want to be. The CE has put this on her platform as well as a focus. So we are working through that process now. Planning is looking at a easement scoring tool. DPW&T, we're replacing all the control signals throughout the intersections that are on county-owned intersections. EPS, we're upgrading a compliance tracker. We're looking at training for our cloud services division as we move into new cloud products and AI products, and modernizing the way we traditionally have like servers in data centers. There'll be some training geared towards that. The GPS system that's in all the county cars, that is up for replacement. And then we keep about 10% contingency. And that is specifically for things like regulation changes, legislation changes, right? We know that the state, the feds, and even locally, we're constantly implementing new legislation that requires IT systems to be upgraded for that. So we have to prepare to react to those as the year goes on. I believe that is my last slide. So thank you so much. I appreciate it. And any questions you have, we're willing to answer.
Great. Thank you so much, Mr. Martin. Do we have any questions from the board? Scrolling through to see if I have any hands up in the air. Okay. Mr. Heckman?
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. As I recall, the last few years, you also had about a 10% contingency in your budget, which not many other departments actually have, or at least it's not a line item. How much, say in the last year, of that contingency did you end up using?
I think we rolled over a very small amount this year. And I'm hoping that I'm watching my chat and someone can put that number in for me. But we usually utilize all of the contingency plan, the contingency money. I want to say it was like 70,000 or something like that, but I will have a number to you in just a minute. We like I said, the use of that contingency a lot of times is like legislation changes. Sometimes it's even our own council, right? They might decide that things like rental compliancy, right? We need a way to enforce rental compliancy, so that requires a tool to be implemented to go through and check that. I'm sorry. So we rolled $170,000 over. I knew there was a 7 in there. I was off by a few numbers, but overall a very small amount in comparison to the total amount. So we're constantly responding to a lot of those changes. It's not just that, right? It could be things like cybersecurity, that there's some big change that takes place impacting our security. We got to be ready to jump on that if that takes place. That might be an upgrade to a system we weren't expecting. That all of a sudden some major system has a vulnerability that wasn't in the overall plan or the operating plan, right? And that causes those cybersecurity changes that, we could be putting ourselves at risk for not keeping up on those. So that could be a part of it. It's all related to like new implementation though.
Yeah, sure. That makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
So it was 170,000 last year that we spent.
No. We spent over 9 million last year. Because we get about, what is it?
I'm sorry,
a
of
million,
the
a million.
contingency.
Yeah, we spent about 900,000 last year, and then rolled over 170,000.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Following along those lines, Mr. Martin, so you have about 9.2 million ask this time, and then last year, I guess you said it was about 9.7 million. So obviously there's budget constraints for every department, and we've been seeing that during this year's CIP presentations. With everything becoming so much more reliant on IT and cybersecurity being such a huge push, I mean, do you really feel that this budget is really getting you what you need for those types of upgrades and, you know, the type of security that we really need to keep everybody's information safe?
I do. Now, the thing to like, there's a couple factors here that play into this. The first is that we obviously plan for budget constraints future years out. So we've done a lot of work previously to get it to the point so that we're not scrambling these next few years during budget constraints, right? That's step one. It's like, obviously we can kind of forecast out a couple years in the event that we're going to have budget problems. And so what a lot of people are doing now is they're building up their cybersecurity on the front-facing side. So, for example, we utilize a third-party solution with machine learning on all the computers that are sit there actively looking for threats and stuff coming in. That's not a cheap piece of software, right? We've had it for about 2 or 3 years now. Everybody else is now trying to get it and trying to find the funding. So by building up that resiliency ahead of time, we've put ourselves in a very aggressive stance. Where we really need to keep moving forward, though, is that response in case something happens. And that's a lot of where money is going. It's to have a third party come in and say, okay, here's your strong points, do this really well. Focus on X, Y, and Z going forward, right? And that will help us build next year's budget as well. And so that's where we're really focusing. The other shift that we look at during this is how software licensing works. And so traditionally, when we would buy a piece of software and implement it, you would essentially pay year over year in what we call perpetual licensing, right? That model has changed. And essentially, year over year, we're now paying we're paying almost in response to that software licensing. And what that means is it's more money coming out of our capital to maintain that software. So we've seen a little bit of a shift of having to adjust our budget higher on the operating side for the ongoing maintenance and support of that software, and utilize the capital strictly for implementation. Because that's what capital is designed for, right? New projects and those implementations. And so we've had to grow our operating budget to meet those needs. And I know Budget and Finance is sitting here and listening, so I want to thank their support as well as seeing that. You know, we've been pushing this agenda the past couple of years that we have to grow that operating side as it shifts.
Okay.
So.
Okay. And so those vulnerability assessments that you're kind of talking about, do you guys do those annually, or is that just like in certain cycles?
It depends. So certain cycles, some of them are required by like the state. Some of them are required overall by the state. Anytime we have a state integration where we have data passing back and forth, there's a legislative requirement that we do some of those. One of the ones we're focusing on this year through actually we're hoping to get a full grant on this one and get the notice of award, so it wouldn't even impact our budget, is to do just a general overall one, right? And so we think it's really important going forward to keep those going as budget allows. And you know, we have multiple funding sources for this. Like I said, this one of the ones we're doing this year, which is purely for us to self-reflect, will be fully, if we get the award, will be fully grant funded. We won't have to rely on capital or operating for that.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Holupka?
Yeah, I guess a couple of questions. The school system and the community college, is that under your purview as well, or do they have separate systems?
They have their separate IT systems and teams for that. So no, they are not under our support umbrella.
But are the systems at all interconnected? I'm also thinking in terms of, you know, security.
The
knowledge system were breached, would that impact your system?
Correct. So no, most of our systems actually, some of the integrations we have when the schools were subject to their event a couple years ago, we actually stopped a lot of those just to protect some county data. We do partner with them on providing some of those fiber feeds to them, but that's not there's no data interacting there, right? That's just strictly for their wide area network.
A second question. I'm assuming that, the state and other counties are all facing similar issues. Is there any sort of coordination, best practices, what you're doing elsewhere or other people are doing?
There are. So I meet. There's a couple things going on. I meet regularly, a couple times a year, with all the CIOs for all the counties throughout Maryland. Whether that's through MACO, the Maryland Association of Counties, or we just have regular meetings so that we're consistently talking. I was talking to the CIO in Baltimore City for their Department of Public Works today, just about some industry stuff going on. But then at the same time, the state and the feds all provide multiple solutions that we follow. So Do It, which is the state system, provides everything from best practices to resources that we sometimes tap into. And then generally things like conferences where certain groups will pull in industry experts, either from private industries or from the federal government. So we interact with the three-letter agencies quite a bit. And that's everything from regular alerts, that we are privy to, that not everybody is, in addition to partnering with them for any type of reporting, right? So the FBI is crucial anytime that there is a breach or a security incident. We have connections over there that we can reach right out to and consult with them. And then we have our cybersecurity, which is part of our operating side of the house.
And then a last question. You were mentioning the sort of the broadband effort to sort of, get the last mile, et cetera.
Correct.
To what degree, are there income qualifications? Someone's fortunate enough to have a large piece of property and they've got an expensive house. Are we subsidizing running the broadband out to them?
Sure. So there's essentially 4 active initiatives: FY21 grant, FY22 grant, FY23 grant, and long driveways. FY21 served about 1,000 homes, and that's essentially wrapped up. That's done. FY22 and 23 will be getting about 95% of the remaining homes throughout the county. And then long driveways is just that. It's so essentially between these 4 programs, we will cover almost 100% of the county. That when I say unserved or underserved, it's houses that have no option for any type of wired broadband to their house, whether that's fiber or cable. Through, so like FiOS is typically the provider for cable or for fiber. Comcast does the cable. And so the long driveways is really that last approximately 5%. It's a certain distance. It will take partnership from the homeowner, right? So typically Comcast will only cover a certain distance, or Verizon or whoever, right? This grant allows us to provide a certain amount of distance coverage. So it might be like, I don't know the exact number in front of me, so I apologize, but it might be that we'll cover up to $2,000 for each one of those driveways that are underserved and unserved by the county, and then the homeowner will have to foot the rest of the bill. Again, I don't know the exact number. I'm using that as an example. So we'll only cover a certain amount for each one of those homes. So in the end, there will be homes that may not be reached, and that a lot of times that's going to be the homeowner maybe decided to go with a different route and use LTE service instead of wired service. But the goal is to provide that opportunity to every house that doesn't have service at this time.
All right, thank you.
Perfect. Anybody else? Mr. Hackman, did you have another question, or is your hand just up from before? Okay. Let's see. Ms. Muneses?
Yes. My question is, again, based on the cybersecurity. My kids were in school when the ransomware occurred. So with esports managed or esports, I guess being available, I think there's one esports center in Rosedale.
Mhm.
Who monitors the use or is it being monitored and is it being used?
So I'd have to, I would defer to Rec and Parks for the usage. Yes, it's being used to the degree they're running like the actual educational program that's taking place there. In terms of like monitoring and system. So the first thing is from a security standpoint, right? Our number one goal is always to protect the county. And so anytime we have a public instance, there's levels of segmentation that take place. So that you don't have certain systems interacting with other systems. I don't want to go too far into detail because then it reveals some security secrets for anybody who's watching, right? In terms of like monitoring, there are certain applications and tools that are used to limit access to systems on those machines, right? And so like, look, the reality is nothing is foolproof, right? Hackers are hackers and they're going to get into stuff. But what we do is we try to prevent the bulk of it and really protect the children that are on there. And so what that means is utilizing multiple resources. Like so those computers right now are set up so that you can really only play the games on those computers, right? The intention is that they can't go out and go to the internet and navigate to websites. They can't open up other programs on the machine. Those tools help limit directly to the games, and we have a special interface that we procured that only allows them to access the games as part of it, and that's it, right? And so like monitoring at that point is going to be programmatic, where the staff at Rec and Parks will help make sure that first of all they are approving any games that are going on there, and then as students are in there engaging with the systems, right? So the reality is they're not putting on like violent video games and the kids can't just download violent video games, right? There's a certain criteria that they're following as part of their request process to put on those machines.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Barton. Any other questions from the board? I don't see any more hands. So really appreciate your time this evening and have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Absolutely. Okay, next we are going to have the Department of Planning. We're going to have presentations by Ms. Megan Benjamin and Mr. Steve Lafferty. We will accept questions following Mr. Lafferty's presentation. So to begin, I would like to invite Ms. Benjamin to begin hers.
Good evening, everyone. Let me just share my screen. I'm Megan Benjamin. I'm the Land Preservation Administrator in the Department of Planning, and I'll be presenting to you this evening on our progress as well as our capital funds needs moving forward towards our land preservation goals. With our capital funds for land preservation, we have been working for many years towards a goal of protecting at least 80,000 acres. We work towards this goal through a number of programs, some very importantly funded through the county capital budget. In Master Plan 2030, we added the stated action to increase the number of preserved acres through sustained financial support for conservation easements and agricultural land preservation programs, prioritizing protection of contiguous tracts of farmland and agricultural priority preservation areas and rural legacy areas. So as of the end of calendar year 2024, we currently have 71,593 acres of private lands protected in permanent conservation easements. In Master Plan 2030, we also added the action to protect 80% of our prime agricultural and forest lands within the county's agricultural priority preservation areas. One of the primary purposes of our ag preservation programs has always been to preserve sufficient land to maintain a viable local base of agricultural production. And this goal, this action, is to be in line with state standards for program certification. Ultimately, to maintain our state certification and most importantly, to protect sufficient acreage to protect our agricultural land base, we're working towards protecting this 80% of our APPA areas. As you can see, we are just above 63% of this goal. This chart shows the proportion of acres that are protected through the different programs. So MALF, which is the Maryland Agricultural Land Preservation Foundation, has always been the base of and most utilized program in the county. We have about 38% of our acres in this program. There's also always been a significant proportion of donated easements through Maryland Environmental Trust and or local land trusts. As you can see there, about 28%. We have 19% of our acreage in rural legacy protection. Those would be both county and state rural legacy easements. Our county ag program makes up about 9% of our total, and regulatory RC4 and RC6 easements make up about 6%. So this just helps illustrate how we have various programs that are all contributing to the overall numbers, as well as giving a variety of options to landowners. And this approach helps us leverage our county funding for state funding and the importance of private donations as well. With our capital funds for land preservation, we are moving forward some important properties. This chart highlights some of the different programs and progress we've made this year. MALF, the County Ag Program, and the County Rural Legacy Program all utilize our county capital funds. Of the 698 acres and 15 projects that closed last calendar year, county funds went towards 7 of those projects. And 5 of them were MALF easements, where county funds covered just under 30% of the 36% of the cost, with state funds making up the remainder. With our land preservation funding, we also have a number of projects in our pipeline still being worked on. We have 26 easements on just under 1,800 acres that are in different stages of the process to utilize our county funds. I want to highlight just a couple of the projects that we completed last year. On the top left of the screen is a 95-acre county rural legacy easement that we acquired with Gunpowder Valley Conservancy. This property was adjacent to a Maryland Environmental Trust easement. It protects farmland, a significant portion of Piney Creek, and a block of over 40 acres of forest lands. Going counterclockwise down to the bottom left, through the MALF program, we acquired a 70-acre vegetable farm. This is actually over in our coastal rural legacy area, and is adjacent to a property that we're working on with our state rural legacy program in that area. And then on the right-hand side of the screen on the top, we have a 29-acre easement that we acquired through the county ag program. And the bottom right, we have a 50-acre easement acquired through MALF. Both of these are added onto a block of protected farmland. And so just kind of showcasing the variety of farms, the size, the type, all of these utilizing our purchase program options and all contributing in different ways to the ag economy. On to our needs moving forward. Baltimore County has long been a leader and has been very successful in protecting our rural lands and preserving lands important to our ag economy and natural resources. But there continues to be work to do, and we need to make sure that we have funds on hand when we have willing landowners wanting to work towards these goals with us. So the MALF program, we have two projects, ag preservation and rural legacy preservation. With our ag preservation, we fund the MALF program. It's always a priority to fund our contribution towards this program because we want to maximize their matching funds that they offer. We are putting $2 million annually towards this category because even though that will go over what they will match at $1.50, they will match to each dollar that we contribute up to $2 million. We prioritize putting funds here because in doing so, the easements that are created are state held, which comes with efficiencies both that we benefit on the front end of processing as well as the long-term legal stewardship obligations as well. We also have our county program. The importance of the county program really highlighted this year. It's always been a complement to the state program, but because of state budget constraints, the MOUth program has combined their typically annual easement cycle. They combined last year's and this year's cycle together, so they were only accepting applications last year. So having the county program available and as an option to our landowners is very important and highlighted in years like this. With Rural Legacy, we've been very successful in working with our local Rural Legacy sponsors to get projects moving in this program. And again, we want to be able to continue our momentum here and keep this program active as well. And we've seen the dollars that are invested by the county in these rural legacy areas. The state acknowledges that, and the sponsors are drawing additional state funding in for the goals in these areas as well. And we also support the Baltimore County Land Trust Coalition with our Rural Legacy Funds, a small grant that we contribute towards their work. They are an umbrella group that was created by the county and the land trusts, which help to bring efficiencies and coordinate their activities. And their work is very much in support of our goals, both through outreach work and the work that they do on the stateside rural legacy grants in the areas that they sponsor. And on to the various sustainability benefits of land preservation. So our land preservation work contributes towards resiliency and sustainability goals in multiple ways. Our ag programs require a soil conservation and water quality plan, which helps to ensure that farming practices are in place to protect soil and water quality and boost sustainability and resiliency. Our rural legacy easements have requirements to enhance stream buffer areas and look to protect forest canopy. All of our easements require forest stewardship plans if we're protecting a block of forest land. And these and other multiple ways all our easements work to help maintain and improve our natural resource functions. And finally, these programs, the programs that these projects are administered through focus on agricultural and rural land preservation, which are focused in areas primarily outside of those areas identified with vulnerable populations. However, the benefits of land preservation impact all members of the community, including underserved and vulnerable populations, through the benefits of clean air and water, maintaining viable ag lands for local food production and security, and all of the other very important public benefits which land preservation provides. And with that, that's the conclusion of my presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Benjamin. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Lafferty to begin his presentation.
Thank you, Ms. Brophy. I appreciate the opportunity to talk with you from our perspective of our capital program. The community improvements program is relatively small related to many of the others that we saw. And particularly it's maybe less exciting than what we saw from what Recreation and Parks has been able to achieve, as well as Public Works and even environmental protection. We do have, let me try to do this in a smart way here. Sorry. How do I best advance this? So you can see our agency mission, which was actually established by staff working together a little over a year ago to best identify the way that we believe we should be directing our resources and our time. Our capital budget is based upon these 5 different pillars. One is that we have policies and programs that have been in place for a number of years that we are continuing to support. Certainly, Master Plan 2030 is a key driver for many of the investments that the county will be making, has been making, and will be making. The county established an enterprise-wide strategic plan when County Executive Oshesky first took office. That has been updated a couple of different times to address a range of changes that we have seen over the last 6 years. The county has 10 sustainable community plans as well. These plans are actually part of a strategy established in the state of Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development that would enable local governments as well as local community-based organizations to obtain state funding for projects that they continue to utilize to improve the well-being of their own communities. We've identified a number of projects, capital projects that are listed in those programs. And actually, while many of them impact other agencies, we'll be working with those agencies to see that they are implemented. We also have 19 different commercial revitalization districts. These have been designated over a number of years, often by the local county council member, otherwise directed or requested by the local community-based organizations such as the local Chamber of Commerce. And while this is really a presentation about the capital budget, as many of you know, the department itself is broken up into basically 4 different sections. We have, of course, the administrative section, which includes our project management team established in 2022, our community planning group that is actually staff not only includes the land preservation, ag preservation work that Megan and Joe Wiley provide, but also are working in each of the council districts. We have a research analysis and design team that not only provides mapping services and reports, some are mandated, some have been requested by the council or the executive over time, but also then are looking at demography and the changes in the county. In fact, we will be staffing the Adequate Public Facilities Ordinance committee that's been established by the council. And Jen Meacham has been asked to work with the redistricting commission. So we serve other departments and agencies in the county as well as our own. We also have a development review team that, as it suggests, reviews development plans, zoning advisory committee requests, which are often changes in zoning or the uses of property, as well as permits. This team is engaged in work in alliance with permits, approvals, and inspection and other agencies that are actually on a daily basis reviewing plans. Chris Martin made reference to the land use regulatory automation system. Very important to move towards an electronic system so that that team can be even more efficient. Our work also supports a lot of community development organizations, such as the Essex Community Development Corporation, the Greater Randallstown Community Development Organization, and the place-based initiative that County Executive Oshesky initiated to really focus and concentrate many departmental resources, not only our departments, but others. And as planners, we were able to work with multiple agencies in trying to develop strategies that are best suited for those communities themselves. So most of our countywide improvements are really directed at quality of life issues and working with older communities throughout the county. We have special emphasis on infrastructure improvements, often basic things that impact communities. Our capital projects range anywhere from various building improvements to signage to historic preservation. As I said, we have 10 sustainable community plans. they actually help drive a lot of the investment discussions that we have with our community-based organization, community-based organizations with which we work. Our program is pretty streamlined, as you can see, just sort of repeating that we have these two that are outlined in the capital budget. Both were approved by the voters in the last referendum. The money that Megan just referenced under ag easements and rural legacy, and $4 million that the voters approved in the referendum in this contingency fund, without the specification that you see in some of the other budgets, such as Public Works, that's been presented to you. So they're really bulk categories in a single line that we are then drawing from. And these are some of the projects that we've been funding over the past year. Now, some of the projects that we have seen actually have been proposed by the county executive in his capital budget, and are ones that we've been asked to help administer and work with the local community-based organizations or nonprofits to support the work that they're doing. Much of the money that you can see in this one line of expenditure to date, money has been allocated but not yet expended. So it doesn't mean that there's no money. It just means that the various entities, such as, for instance, the Glenn L. Martin Aviation Museum, has not yet drawn down the funds that have been appropriated. Whereas the Catonsville Emergency Assistance Center, which is expanding its pantry to provide choice pantry for people that they are serving, has already expended part of the money that has been allocated to them. These are some additional ones that we are providing. The county executive, former county executive Oshevsky, was committed to supporting projects in the city where Baltimore County residents can also take advantage, such as the National Aquarium. And the National Aquarium's work with its floating wetlands and other work of restoration is something that we have supported. I'll point out a few of the more specifics as we go through these, or answer any questions if you have them as we go through them as well. Security Square Mall continues to be a major capital project for the county. Just recently, and you may have seen this, the county purchased an additional 9 acres of land from Macy's. Macy's has repositioned a lot of its portfolio across the country, closing down at least 66 different mall sites, mall locations, 2 of them in Maryland, not only the one here at Security Square Mall, but also in Harford County. They approached the county about the acquisition of the land that they control. This acquisition not only acquires the building, but 2 different out parcels that will give us a total of 9 acres in addition to the 30 acres that we had already acquired. We have engaged a private consulting firm, Redgate Financial Advisors, who are located in Washington and in Boston, to help us think through and help us to position the property so we can go out to the market and with an RFP and retain a master developer to work through the complicated nature of this property. Complicated because there are multiple property owners. We do not have full access to the entire site because of the lack of reciprocal easement agreements. But we also do have willing partners. Set the Captives Free owns a property that has been converted not only to a worship center, but also to an education and community center. The main mall owner, City View Properties, is very supportive of working with us to see what strategies are best going to be situated to reposition the entire site and not just the 39 acres that the county owns. In Pikesville, we have been able to work with their action plan committee to identify potential capital projects. The first big one is this mural, which is not only spectacular in its color, but has engendered a lot of support in the community. We've also supported the project manager who's working with the community to identify other properties. One of the partners in our efforts has been the Pikesville Armory Foundation. And while we have already given them over $3 million, there's no more funds that we're allocating at this time, at least out of our budget. The foundation has taken great strides forward. This is a property that was basically an abandoned armory, military installation that the state was willing to transfer to us so that we could transfer it immediately to the foundation. The foundation has been able to obtain state and federal money. They've recently been awarded a substantial tax credit as well to help them with the redevelopment of the site. And the county is committed to working with them to develop the back former military, military marching grounds that's going to be converted into recreation activity site. And the county is committed to investing over $9 million over the next 3 years for that improvement. That is going to be that's going to be handled out of Recreation and Parks, not out of our department. But nonetheless, still provides a terrific asset and will provide a terrific asset for the Pikesville community. On Liberty Road, we have invested, and the county executive put aside $500,000 for facade and various property improvements. This is on top of $430,000 that we were able to obtain from the state of Maryland for such improvements. The county, working with residents, developed a set of design guidelines to support redevelopment at 8 different shopping centers up and down the corridor. We have also supported a community development organization using federal American Rescue Plan Act funds to stand up an organization that we will now be able to partner with on redevelopment initiatives. And we actually we invested in them and have continued to work with this GRCDO in an area which we really believe has been underserved and not gotten the recognition that it's needed as far as being basically a potential cultural hub on the west side of the county. We are actually from the city line all the way out to past Greens Lane with this effort. One of the ways that we have also started to invest is not only on Liberty Road, but across the county. The county executive authorized us to spend $500,000 out of our 2024 funds to fund 9 different organizations that would be able to provide facade improvements in their communities. I was actually on a site visit to Essex today. They have over 15 facade grants that they have made, some with state money, some with county money. Captain Chuck's is one of the ones. They were able to get money to help do. They've done a lot of lighting and awnings and improvements in buildings throughout that commercial stretch on Eastern Boulevard. And you can see the organizations that we partner with to provide the kind of resources that can make a real difference in the aesthetics as well as in the quality of the properties themselves. Another example is in Catonsville, where you can see this, both the renderings and how the current store now looks after making various improvements based upon work that we were able to support. This is another good example of a combination of resources that the county is able to provide. The planning department manages an architect on call program. This provides up to 10 hours of free architectural services to property owners who are looking to remake, remodel their property. We're not talking about wholesale rehabilitations, but improvements that are going to make a difference in the way the building looks, perhaps add onto the building to make it a little more functional. The Department of Economic and Workforce Development also manages 2 programs. One is a business improvement loan program, and the other is they manage the revitalization tax credits as available for improvements that are made to properties in the commercial revitalization districts. Recognizing that much of the emphasis of the previous spending out of this capital budget account was for work that the county was directly engaged in, we requested the county executive to pivot and enable us to provide more support to community-based projects. He enabled us to establish 2 new grant programs totaling $1.2 million. $200,000 was for projects in the range between $3,000 and $15,000, and then $1 million for projects above $15,000. This is simply a list of some of the uses. There are a number of community building renovations. We have found that there are various community organizations, Oliver Beach being one of them, Bowley's Quarters another, Idlewild being a third, that own buildings in their own communities and have needed some renovations or rehabilitation. So this has been a source to help those nonprofit groups make some building improvements. In Catonsville, Music City, Maryland has a performance space. We were able to match some of the state money that they were able to obtain in order to expand the space and make it even more desirable in part of Music City. And as you may know, Catonsville has arts and entertainment district that also is promoting music and musical performances. And in fact, that was one of the public library and one of the reference points that the library director made regarding the studio in Catonsville in one of its library. I mentioned Oliver Beach. We've provided money for signage interpretive signage at Hart and Miller Island. This playground that you're seeing here is from the Islamic Society of Baltimore over on Rolling Road. Hamilton neighborhood signage, Hopewell Cancer signage, Hopewell Cancer Center also got new lighting and signs. And in fact, community signs tend to be a very popular request. It's a sign of a lot of community pride and presence so that people are sort of displaying to the public at large who and where they are. This is one example over on the east side of the county. Again, the Islamic Society's project here shows some of the playground improvements that have been made, including lighting to help it get more uses from the community members. Another example of funds that was outside of the Community Improvement Grant Program is out of our regular contingency. In Essex, they had this cube that was sort of the main iconic entry point. A couple of years ago, they replaced that with another entry way to greet people as they came into Essex on Eastern Boulevard. They moved the cube into storage at the Heritage Society, and now the Heritage Society, with financial support from the county, has been able to make it a more present for the community to enjoy, as well as simply to demonstrate again community pride. In Oliver Beach, we have provided money for their building, for flood doors, and even bulkhead repairs that Department of Public Works and Transportation had initiated, but they saw that there was a faulty wall that while the county wasn't responsible for the wall, they're working in tandem with the community to fortify the wall and improve the drainage. We've provided funds as well for the Irvine Nature Center trail for trails and exhibits. And over the past 2 years, our project management team, which has been basically two people, has distributed over $17 million in capital grants or entered into grant agreements for $17 million, which has included some federal funds, which has meant them distributing funds to 73 different organizations and 130 different grants. Certainly, we look to using our funds to promote sustainability and equity as well. Many of the projects have demonstrated an adaptive reuse of buildings, provided environmental education opportunities, used green construction practices that have been able to reduce energy consumption, as well as to install native landscaping and remove impervious surfaces in order to improve drainage. Similarly, we look to distribute funds as well as we can across the entirety of the county. We've seen, as with Catonsville, food insecurity is a significant issue. Access to an increasing number of programs such as the National Aquarium and other community-based services are aimed at bringing in more lower income and communities of color to get those benefits. And finally, we know that there are many communities, and this has emerged through the sustainable community planning process, for instance, where investments continue to be needed. And so while we do not have a specific set beyond the existing programs that we have, we are looking to retool our community improvement grant program this year. We probably looking a little differently at placemaking and how we can place some investments in various places that already have plans in place, and continue to be open to requests from community-based organizations that are looking to make a range of improvements in their communities. So if you have any questions for me, I'm more than happy to answer them, or you may have any questions for Megan this evening as well. So thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Director Lafferty and Ms. Benjamin. Do I have any questions from the board? Looking for hands. Mr. Holupka?
Knew I was going to have questions.
All
Always. A couple of questions for Ms. Benjamin. I know the county has a goal of 80,000 acres of land. We're about 90% of the way there now. Is the expectation as we get close and hit the goal that the amount required for agricultural preservation will go down in further out years?
Budget-wise, yes. So at some point, we will meet our goals. And so the capital funds, I would assume at some point in time, we won't be having these capital funds for land preservation.
Yeah, I mean, because I think people who've heard me before, I will admit I have a long-standing issue with the fact that we spend more on preserving land outside the URDL that, as Todd Warren would point out, is not public land, it's not publicly accessible, than we do on the community improvements inside. So my hope is that as we get closer, we can begin to change that, to begin to spend more on the community improvements, particularly in some of our older neighborhoods. I've also had a question, and I was never able to get a good answer from Wayne McGinnis when he was on the board. Do we have a sense of how much agricultural value the county is, the average American spends about $10,000 a year on food, 800,000 people, you're looking at like $8 billion worth of food. How much of the county farmland is it supporting? Mr. McGinnis often made it sound like it was a large proportion, but I've never quite been able to get a handle on that.
I don't know that I have the answer off the top of my head for you. I don't have that answer. So, I mean, I can circle back to you. I can talk with our Office of Agriculture and the Department of Economic and Workforce Development. They may have a better handle on some of the numbers related to the ag economy, I think, that you're getting at. But I'd be happy to circle back with you and try to dig down to the information that you're looking for.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Anyone else have any questions? Okay, it doesn't look like there are any more hands up in the air. So
Kel,
sorry. Go
I
ahead.
have a question.
Kel just
Yep.
put it in.
This is for Ms. Benjamin.
Yeah.
land preservation, is any land being acquired or in the future will be acquired for like off-site reforestation, like for mitigation?
So there are forest mitigation programs, but those are through the Department of Environmental Protection and Sustainability. Those aren't the programs that we work with the ag preservation and planning.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Perfect, thank you. And thank you for noticing that hand, Director Lafferty. Let's see, anybody else? No, looks
I
like
think
that's
Peter
it.
has a question.
How come I can't see the hands?
He's had his hand up.
Oh, he's holding up like this, not the emoji. That's why I was like, I'm scrolling down. Thank you, Courtney. Mr. Array, use your emoji hand. I think you're on mute, sir.
Can you hear me?
Now we can. Yep,
Okay.
you're good.
Okay, so I just want to go back to the land preservation, to go back to what Scott was asking. I think the program, I think last year we discussed this thing, 2 years ago we discussed it. It is a state requirement. It has nothing to do with environmental. It has everything to do to preserve farming, because as we encourage farmers to keep their land, not to develop it, not to build homes and houses, and it helps the state and the counties to use those properties for farming purposes only. Because if you allow everybody to develop, to sell, we will have nothing left. So it's a state program which each county is required by law to participate in. And that is why the state does supplement, help the counties to continue to maintain the program. So it's just a little clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Array. Okay. Ms. Muniz, did you have another question or is that left over from before?
It was actually left over, but I do have a question for Mr. Lafferty.
Okay, go for it.
For the community improvement grants, was the $1 million allocated for each program, was that used up, or is?
Yes, all the money has been, all 1.2 million has been allocated to different organizations.
Is there plans to allocate more money into that program?
Well, since we now will have additional funds starting July 1st in this next capital budget, we do intend to continue those programs, although we're looking to adjust some of the requirements and how the funds are actually allocated. We didn't really get started in that program until, probably in the fall. So we do believe there'll be a lot greater demand, but we're going to need to make some adjustments in how we managed it.
Okay,
Not
thank
because
you.
it was mismanaged, only because some of the questions that we got raised questions we hadn't really considered, and so we now need to step back and make sure that we're very clear on how the funds can be used and what's expected of the grantee.
Perfect, thank you. Anyone else that I am missing? No? Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Benjamin and Mr. Lafferty, for your presentations. If there are no further comments or questions, we will adjourn. Any other comments? No? Okay, I would like to thank all of the presenters for their presentations this evening. The next meeting of the Planning Board Committee on the Capital Improvement Budget and Program will be Thursday, January 30th at 5:30 p.m. The meeting will be held virtually. Information for that meeting can be found on the Planning Board's webpage. Thank you everyone for attending tonight, and this meeting is hereby adjourned. Bye everyone.
Thank you.
Thank